I retired early and thought I'd finally relax, until my greedy son demanded my life savings. I worked for 40 years to build a good life. I saved, invested, and finally, I retired early, ready to enjoy the rest of my days in peace. Then my son, Alex, came knocking. At first it was small things, a little help here, a little loan there. But soon it became constant. He acted like my retirement fund was his personal inheritance in advance. I tried to say no, but he didn't like that. Suddenly, I was being called selfish. He told me I was being unfair by keeping all that money to myself when he was struggling. He thought I would just give in. He thought he could guilt trip me into handing over everything I had worked for. But what he didn't know, I had one final lesson to teach him, and by the time I was done, he learned the hard way that I owed him nothing. Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now, let's start the video. For 40 years, I worked hard to build a life I could be proud of. I wasn't born into money. Everything I had, my house, my retirement savings, my investments, I earned. I worked long hours, sacrificed vacations, skipped fancy dinners, and put every extra penny into making sure I'd have a comfortable retirement. And when I finally retired at 62, I thought I could finally relax. No more waking up to an alarm, no more office politics, just me, my wife, and the freedom to finally enjoy life. Then my son, Alex, came knocking. At first, it was small things, a little help with rent, a loan to cover an emergency. Nothing big, and I didn't think twice about helping. After all, he was my son. If I had the money, why wouldn't I help? But then the requests became more frequent, more entitled. It was no longer, "Hey Dad, I'm in a tough spot. Can you help?" It became, "Well, you have all that money sitting in savings. Why not help me out more?" I should have seen it coming, but I didn't. Not until he demanded I give him a chunk of my retirement savings. That's when I realized Alex didn't see me as his father anymore. He saw me as his personal ATM. And the moment I told him no, that's when the real trouble began. The first time I told Alex no, he looked at me like I had just slapped him across the face. "Dad, come on," he scoffed, waving a hand. "You have more money than you need. Why wouldn't you want to help your own son?" I set my coffee cup down, keeping my voice calm. "Because that money isn't just sitting there waiting for you, Alex. That's my retirement. Your mother and I worked hard for it. We planned for this." He rolled his eyes. Yeah, I get that. But it's not like you're struggling. I mean, what are you even spending it on? Vacations, golf?" I clenched my jaw. That's not the point. His entitlement was suffocating. He wasn't asking for help anymore. He was demanding his cut, like my savings were some kind of inheritance in advance. Then came the guilt tripping. "You raised me to be successful," he sighed, shaking his head. "But things are harder now, Dad. You don't understand how expensive life is for people my age." I scoffed. "Oh, really? You think life wasn't expensive when I was your age? You think I had everything handed to me?" He shifted, clearly frustrated that I wasn't backing down. "Dad, I have a family to take care of. You're just sitting on all that money while we're struggling." That hit a nerve. I stood up, towering over him. "And whose fault is that? You made choices, Alex. You chose to live in a house you can't afford. You chose to rack up credit card debt. You chose to have kids before you were financially ready. That's not my responsibility." His jaw tightened. "So you're just gonna let me suffer?" "No, Alex," I said, my voice firm. "I already helped you plenty, but this is not my problem." And that's when his true colors came out. "You're a selfish old man," he snapped. "What's the point of all that money if you're just hoarding it like a greedy bastard?" I took a slow breath, staring at him. And that's when I knew. This wasn't my son anymore. This was a man who thought he was entitled to my life's work, and I wasn't about to let him take it. I stared at Alex, letting his words hang in the air. A greedy bastard. That's what he thought of me? After everything I had done for him? After decades of making sacrifices to give him the best life possible? Something inside me snapped. "You know what, Alex?" I said, my voice calm but sharp as a knife. "You're right, I do have money. And do you know why I have it?" He crossed his arms, glaring. "Because you were lucky?" I laughed. Actually laughed. Number. Because I worked my ass off for 40 years. Because I saved when I could have splurged. Because I made smart choices instead of expecting someone else to fix my problems. His nostrils flared. So what? You're just gonna sit on it while I struggle? I shook my head. No, Alex. I'm going to enjoy the retirement I earned. And you? You're going to learn what it means to live with your own choices. His face darkened. So that's it? You're just cutting me off? I sighed. Alex, I was never your bank account. I helped you when you needed it, but I am not funding your bad decisions for the rest of my life. He scoffed. You're so damn selfish. I smirked. Says the man demanding my life savings. His face twisted with anger. Fine. If that's how you want it, then don't expect to see your grandkids anymore. So that's where we were now. He was holding my grandchildren over my head. I stared at him, my heart pounding. This wasn't the son I raised. This was a man who had been given too much and had learned nothing. And in that moment, I made my decision. I wasn't just going to cut him off. I was going to teach him a lesson he'd never forget. After Alex stormed out of my house, I expected a cooling off period. Maybe a few days of silence, then an apology. I was wrong. Instead, he doubled down. I started getting passive-aggressive texts. Alex, I hope you're enjoying your retirement while your son struggles to provide for his family. You're sitting on all that money, Dad. What's the point if you're not going to help the people who actually need it? You always said family comes first, but I guess that was just a lie. At first, I ignored him, but the messages kept coming, and soon, they got worse. Alex, if you don't want to be a part of my life, then don't expect to see your grandkids anymore. I clenched my jaw when I read that one. There it was, the ultimate manipulation tactic. I should have been furious, but honestly, I just felt disappointed, because this wasn't my son talking. This was a spoiled man-child who thought he could bully me into handing over my life savings. And that's when I made my decision. I wasn't just going to cut him off financially, I was going to make sure he learned a lesson he would never forget. The first thing I did, I called my lawyer and changed my will. If Alex thought he was automatically inheriting my money, he was in for a rude awakening. Instead of leaving my assets to him, I set up trust funds for my grandkids, money that he wouldn't be able to touch. The rest? I decided I was going to enjoy it. I booked a 2-week vacation. I looked into buying a vacation home. I even started looking at new hobbies, things I had put off for years because I was too busy working. Because my money, it was mine, and I wasn't going to waste another second of my life feeling guilty about it. A few weeks later, Alex finally called. I almost didn't answer, but I was curious. Dad, he said, his voice calm, almost too casual. Can we talk? I leaned back, sipping my coffee. Sure, Alex. What's on your mind? There was a pause. Then, I've been thinking, he said slowly. I overreacted. I shouldn't have said those things. I thought family was supposed to help each other. Ah, so now we were in the guilt trip phase. I sighed. Family helps each other, Alex, but helping isn't the same as funding your entire lifestyle. Another pause. Look, Dad, he said, forcing a chuckle. I don't want to fight anymore. Let's just put this behind us. I smirked. Sure, no problem. I'm already past it. His tone brightened. Really? That's great but just to be clear, I cut him off, I'm still not giving you any money. Silence. Then his voice snapped. Jesus, Dad, why are you being so stubborn about this? I laughed. Stubborn? You mean for refusing to hand over my entire retirement because you don't want to take responsibility for your own life? He exhaled sharply, clearly frustrated. So, that's it? He muttered. You're really just gonna sit on all that money while I struggle? I shook my head. No, Alex, I'm going to enjoy the retirement I earned. And you're going to learn what it means to stand on your own 2 feet. He let out a bitter laugh. Well, don't expect to see your grandkids anytime soon. Back to the threats. I sighed. Alex, let me be very clear. If you want to use your kids as bargaining chips, that's on you. But I'm not playing this game anymore. And with that, I hung up because I had finally accepted the truth. Alex wasn't my responsibility anymore. After that call, Alex went silent. No texts, no guilt trips, just nothing. At first I thought he had finally realized his mistake, but no. A few weeks later, I found out the real reason he stopped talking to me. My brother called me one evening. "Hey, Jim, you might want to hear this." I frowned. "What's up?" "Alex has been bad-mouthing you to the whole family," he said, sighing. "Telling everyone you're some kind of greedy old man who abandoned his own son." I let out a cold chuckle. "Of course he is." "And that's not all," my brother continued. "He's been asking around for money. First Mom, then Aunt Linda, then me. Same sob story. Dad won't help me, and now I can't pay my bills." I rolled my eyes. "Let me guess. He didn't mention the part where he demanded my life savings?" "Nope, left that part out." I shook my head. Classic Alex. But that's when my brother said something that really got to me. "You know what's funny, Jim? He asked me for $10,000. Said he needed it desperately." I frowned. And when I told him I couldn't help, guess what he did? My brother chuckled. Booked a trip to Vegas with his buddies the next day. I blinked. Then I started laughing. Because of course he did. This wasn't about needing help. It was about entitlement. And at that moment, I knew. Cutting him off was the best decision I had ever made. A few months passed, and for the first time in years, I felt free. No more worrying about Alex's bad decisions. No more waiting for the next guilt trip. I spent my money on me, took a vacation, bought a boat, started playing golf, not because I cared about the game, but because I could. And then, one day, Alex called again. I let it ring a few times before picking up. "Dad," he said, his voice quieter now. "Alex," I said, sipping my coffee, "what can I do for you?" A long pause, then, finally, "I messed up." I raised an eyebrow. "Yeah?" "I don't know what to do," he admitted. "I thought I could handle things on my own, but He hesitated. "I wasn't ready." I sighed. "And what do you want from me, Alex?" Another pause, then, "Just advice." I leaned back, surprised. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't asking for money, just my guidance. And that was something I was willing to give. Some kids think their parents' money automatically belongs to them. Alex thought my retirement was his safety net. But the truth? Parents don't owe their kids a free ride through life. Sometimes the best thing you can do is let them fail. Because only then do they learn to stand on their own. Have you ever had someone feel entitled to what you worked for? Drop your stories in the comments. I'd love to hear them.